Well, so welcome to podcast number 3. I'm here with Grant Parry, one of the largest Instagram account, not that, but one of the largest. How would you want to say it? One of the largest NFL fan base accounts on Instagram.
You can go more specific and say Patriots, or you could just lie and you could say that it's one of the largest. I guess what is one of, right? You could just it's somewhere in the top 10,000.
Oh yeah, certainly. But when you really think about it, I mean, there's really only about I would consider 10 obnoxiously passionate fan bases in the NFL that are at least relevant right now.
Yeah.
And the Patriots are definitely on the lower end ever since, Tom Brady and Belichick have departed, but they're still up there. And so when you have that obnoxious in a good way of a fan base and leading one of those accounts, I definitely consider it one of the top. Definitely some shade towards the Jags and Panthers.
There's some really good Jags pages out there, I will say. So
no, there are. I'll come across a Panthers page. Yeah, a Panthers page. I'm like, I don't know they're this crazy about it, but people are, and it's good for the sport, good for the league. So yeah, last time you were on. It was podcast episode 1, and we just had a quick intro about the NFL season, mainly just the Patriots. We kind of missed out on doing the full preview, but right now it's week 2 or week 3, in between weeks 2 and 3. And so I want to take this time to talk a little bit more about what you see the NFL as a whole coming up this year than what we've seen so far, and then a little bit more about you eventually at the end of the podcast. But yeah, what if I had to come off with a lead question, it would be, what have been your biggest surprises so far in the first 2 weeks?
I think it's that offense is really down and quarterback play is really down. Without saying quarterback play is bad, which it's nearing, it's not in a great spot. And I feel like I've been pretty shocked with, if you think back to 5 or 6 years ago when there was that Rams-Chiefs Monday Night Football game and everyone was like,
it's 60-60 or something.
Well, yeah, whatever. It was just that shootout. I mean, there was defensive touchdowns, big returns. It was an all-time classic. That was 2018. I think from that point on is when people were like, this is it. This offense is going to be king and everything is going to be offensive based. You see all these quarterbacks come in, the Mahomes, the Lamars, Herbert, offenses load up. Everyone, wide receivers that were traditionally being a wide receiver 1 a few years ago are now wide receiver 2s and 3s. And that all feels like it's been kind of amounting to this offensive explosion. And then here we are 2 weeks into the NFL season, and it feels like quarterback play is at an all-time low, which I've just thought is really interesting. I think there was only 2 quarterbacks that had 300 yards in week 1, Baker and Sam Darnold, maybe. Right now, I think it's Brock Purdy, maybe I think Minshew's up there for the top of the league in passing yards. It just all feels very wonky. Mahomes had 120 yards against the Bengals last week. It just feels like every year offenses get off to a slow start, but this is especially slow. And I wonder if all of the offense, all of the hype on that is kind of either hit a point where it's not going to be that way, or there's a talent issue within these organizations, and they're moving on quickly from places, or they're not developing people in the right way. I just think it's really interesting.
Yeah, no, it is interesting, especially there's all these different stats coming out. Barstool is definitely, PMT has been in my ear a little bit about that, but it's just literally every single week has been in the first these past several years of the NFL have been upwards of I think it was over 100, or maybe it was not quite 100, but let's just say about 100 touchdowns in the first opening couple of weeks, and then now it's down to 66 or something. Wow. I forget the exact number or stat line, but essentially it's half of what we're kind of normally used to. And then on top of that, like you're saying, it's just overall yardage production, it just seems a lot lower. And there was that one there's another backup I think that like had, or not backup, but like traditional backup person, not Gardner, but someone else in the league that has it like another 300-yard game, but it's like versus Aaron Rodgers that hasn't had a single one. So I forget who that is, but
I just looked up. It's Brock Purdy is first in the league in passing yards. Gardner Minshew is 2, Stafford 3, Goff 4, Lamar 5. And then Darnold and Baker not far behind. 2 is right there. But those are all the league leader right now after 2 weeks is Brock Purdy with 550 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick.
that's pretty embarrassing.
275 yards average on a game.
Just very abnormal.
It's crazy. Like that's just not something that happens.
No, I'm used to like, Matt Ryan, let's just say, hitting like an average of 200 like per week. Let's just say I have like 200 and 2-to-1 ratio of touchdown and interception. So like on average, like in my opinion, the most average quarterback growing up, what I was witnessing is that like if you're a number 12 overall quarterback in the league, you're probably throwing for at least 450 yards in week 1 with at least 3 or 4 touchdowns. And now the person in the lead is doing that. So it's kind of weird. What do you think? You said you don't really have a reason why you think it's happening, or you have multiple reasons.
And I think back to I know people like since Brady's retired and he's been doing a lot of media, there's been a lot of quotes from him saying things about the modern game and talent development and everything. But he talks a lot about there's not a big focus on developing players. People are very quick to move on from players. I mean, Bryce Young, perfect example right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that. I love that quote. I forgot where he was saying it. Maybe it was at like a leadership conference or something. But he's like, "What's wrong with the league now is everyone's so quick to move on." Maybe it was also about college. Maybe that's what that conference is about.
Yeah, and I just think that like he's talked a lot about like there's bad habits in the game. There's people doing like very uncharacteristic things of their position, whether I'm thinking specifically quarterbacks, but I think it goes for anyone. And I just feel like that's kind of like I don't know. All of the I saw a clip today or yesterday on Twitter that was just kind of a compilation of like Brady pocket movement. And of course I'm being a Pats fan whose team is not very good, looking back and romanticizing it. But like it was like it's like watching a different sport. You're like, this just doesn't happen now. Like, and no one wants to do this. It's all like bail out of the pocket, take the sack, off platform throw. Like it's incredibly different. And I think that leads to a lot of these bad habits where people are just willing to make those mistakes where they weren't before. And honestly, one of the best quarterback performances of the entire week 2 was Geno Smith. And he carved. And he did it all from the pocket. Like that was a true vintage pocket passing moment. Not that there's any one right way to play quarterback. Anyone would rather have both. But I just think that I don't know. As far as I don't know who led the league in yards in week 2, but I'm sure Geno Smith was right there. And he had a stellar game. As someone who that was the game I was honed in on, he was amazing against a very good defense, I might add.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, the Pats defense is no joke. I mean, like, I wouldn't want to play them, to say the least. But yeah, no, that's interesting. That's Geno. Geno's like literally like not the first person that I think of when it comes to pocket passing. I mean, he's definitely not like a running QB, but he's just not somebody I think of when it comes.
Yeah, he's not sitting in there like Peyton Manning. He was 33 for 44, so 75% completion percentage, 327 yards, and a touchdown, and no picks.
Yeah,
it's a stellar offense.
That's a clean stat line, and it's surprising too because I thought, I mean, it's only week 2. Who knows? But I thought by now we would already be seeing the Sam Howell train coming out, their backup. So
he just keeps pushing people away. And he's got one of the all-time great. Like you just really don't see people or quarterbacks like when it fizzles out in one place, them going somewhere else and it working out. You just don't see a second team like year 5, 6, 7 bump. And recently, I think the first one I can think of was Ryan Tannehill. After leaving Miami, he went to Tennessee and had the best years of his career. He was playing top 5 quarterback level football for a few years, like 2019. They were in the AFC Championship. And then Baker.
The Titans to the AFC Championship.
Right.
Which is crazy.
And then
including being the Pats that final year of Brady.
Yes, Ryan Tannehill did not really do much in that game, but they did.
Yeah,
They
no, he
did.
didn't. He didn't.
They did
But
beat the Pats in that
it's still an iconic
postseason.
moment.
Yeah. And then Baker with the Bucks, and now I feel like Geno is in that category where it's like he had those years, like he leaves the Jets and goes to New York and LA, and then ends up now finding a second home in Seattle and becoming the guy after Russ. So
Yeah, same thing right now with Sam Darnold. Knock on wood. I don't think
we
that's
did this. We did this.
but
I'm cautiously optimistic about Darnold because this is how his season started his first year in Carolina. He was like really good for 3 games. And then like once a quarter of the season got through, it fell back off. And it was the Sam Darnold that I think everyone thought they were going to get in Carolina.
yeah, I'm not optimistic at all. Like, I'm like, I don't really think he's going to be the guy at all. Like, even Geno, he's a playoff caliber. He can be a playoff caliber quarterback, but he's not. He's not going to win a Super Bowl. I hope he proves me wrong, but like, he's not. And then when it comes to Sam Darnold, I don't even think he's a playoff caliber quarterback. He just, like you said, like we haven't seen it at all. Like, even in college, like let's just roll back all the way. In college, I remember watching Geno, and maybe that's just because West Virginia was a little bit more prominent than USC at the time. But Sam Darnold just doesn't move the needle for me. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, I don't think he's some long-term solution. Obviously, they invested in JJ McCarthy, and it would take a lot for Sam Darnold to move on. But I know that people have been really like, Sam Darnold's one of those interesting guys where it's like, he was in such a bad situation with New York that I don't really think anyone ever wanted to assess any blame to him. And we haven't really seen a full picture outside maybe like whatever he played 6, 7, 8 games in Carolina to really like get a feel for what he's done. So it's just been this kind of in limbo. Has he figured it out? We haven't seen him in a while, where that typically leads NFL fans to be more optimistic about any player. When you don't see a guy for a while, you can start buying back into him. So, I mean, he's had a good 2 weeks here, but we've seen plenty of quarterbacks have a great 2 weeks, and then that's why there's 17 games.
Yeah. Josh Dobbs. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's quarterbacks that are great for 2 weeks. There's some guys that you just want that you can, hey, like Sam Darnold is actually the perfect quarterback for anyone when we have all these QB injuries now.
Yeah.
Having him stand behind someone and, hey, give us 2 games, give us 2 weeks. If the Packers had signed him, think about the difference in expectations they would have. Obviously, they went and beat the Colts last week, but I mean, that's just exactly the type of guy you want.
Yeah, that's the definition of a good backup quarterback. Like if you can win at least, I don't know, 2-3 games in your first 6 weeks, 5 weeks. I mean, I think that's exactly what a backup quarterback is supposed to do for an average team. When it goes past 6 weeks, when you have an ACL type of injury, it's probably not going to happen. But it's kind of cool, regardless. So, what do you think? We talked about that. What's your take on the Bryce Young situation?
I feel like I've done I used to be one of those like prominent people that when if you start a rookie or you start like rookie quarterbacks can start if they're ready to start, they're ready to start. That was kind of my stance.
Yeah.
Like the best quarterbacks will not let the situation impede their ability. If they do, they were never going to be the guy that you wanted them to be anyways, especially if they're a number 1 overall pick. I do feel like in the last 2-3 years, especially maybe in the last more so months, I've kind of changed the way that I think about like starting rookie quarterbacks because I feel like that clock is sped up on them, and I don't feel like these guys are coming into the league as prepared as they used to be, or a lot like it feels like players are much more project types now and more reliant on the situation than they used to be. I'm a huge Bryce Young fan. I was one of those guys that coming out of the draft, I would have put my reputation on being like, this guy's a good pro. I remember watching him at Bama, and he made every single play. That was Bryce Young. Like every time they needed a play, he would make it. And I know that there's measurables, hand size, height, weight, whatever. It's like, that's great, whatever. I think that stuff never mattered to me with Bryce Young because I was like, this is a guy who just constantly makes plays. And whatever stat number that we can equate to that, it simply is him just being clutch. He's a playmaker and he's a good quarterback.
Same thing with Baker Mayfield. Like he's not the most talented guy at all, but when it comes to just playmaking ability, there's probably 5 quarterbacks in the league that I would rely on like almost in any situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying they're up there at all, but like they're like just with their playmaking ability, it's like okay, that's something to consider.
Yeah, I don't think Bryce Young is, and I know the argument that people, when you get put in a bad situation, you develop bad habits, you play the game a different way, you get out of your style. So I understand all that. I still think if I wouldn't put any stock in Bryce Young being in all time, like he's not gonna, I wouldn't say I'm as confident today as I was when he got drafted. But my point being that like I do feel like this was probably the worst situation that a quarterback got put in. And I
1000%.
loved Mel Kiper's stance or his rant that he had yesterday about it when he talked about how they kind of let CJ Stroud's success pressure
Oh,
the organization into changing things more rapidly. And oftentimes when things go bad offensively, there's kind of like a chain of effect that happens where it's like the offensive coordinator goes, then the head coach goes, then the quarterback goes, then the there's a command that it goes down, a blame list, if you will.
Yeah.
And
which is ironic too, because the Panthers just hired a new GM last winter.
Right. So it's like they get this new GM, they reinvent the whole wheel. And that's great if you think the old system sucks. But it's just because the guy might be better, it still can be harmful to switch the offense and switch the whole that just no matter if it's a better system, it can still be a hindrance for a young quarterback to have that happen to them. And that's exactly what happened to Bryce Young. He had a whole new system come in. They gave him 2 games. This organization is a dumpster fire. Like just top, like I really can't think of a example of a quarterback going into a worse situation. So that's kind of where I'm at with it, where I'm like, I've changed my tune on this. Like it's making me as a Patriots fan who was like, listen, if Drake May's ready to go, just let the guy go, like let him go and like let him start. Now it's like, hey, if you want to hold him for a few weeks, fine by me, because I like that's going to scare off a lot of people, that situation in Carolina. Now, I don't think New England's even anywhere close to Carolina, but
no.
It's like that situation is going to open some eyes to people. They're like, hey, listen, like we this is an expensive asset. We moved up, and it's one of the all-time blunders. And I don't think he'll ever start there again in a series. They might play this revolving door of quarterbacks where they just plug in one, take one out. As soon as he can get out of there, the better. I hope they're able to find a new place for him. I think that he should go look at Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, to bring it back to the previous conversation, and say, there's hope for me out there, because those are 2 guys that were in Carolina and are now finding success now. So it's like, I hope they can put him in a good situation, because truly I do think situation is everything for all rookies. Like as good as you are, you can be great, but the situation will always elevate you more.
100%. What do you think if you could control it, what would you do as a Panthers organization?
I mean, it's hard because I feel like it starts at the top with ownership, and no GM, no head coach, no quarterback can control that. And seemingly it went from like last year or 2 years ago when they drafted Bryce Young, that a lot of people reportedly, of course, everyone wants the good guy once we know, the hindsight bias, but a lot of people wanted Stroud. Tepper kind of stood on the table for Bryce Young, brought Bryce Young in. Now that they realized Stroud was so good, they kind of like compensated for it and flipped the whole organization. I mean, I don't know how that gets better. I really don't. Is Callis going to be the guy for multiple years? Probably not. He'll have to deal with this, and they'll fire him, and he'll go get a coordinator job somewhere. Like it just feels a little bit like so far gone. And I really don't know how this thing gets back on track, because it's been getting steadily worse. And it's not like the new regime here has been ever since Ham left in 2019. It's been this way with the quarterback play. They haven't gotten anything out of their offensive talent really since Cam and McCaffrey left. That was the last 2 truly great talents they had there. I mean, Thielen had a decent year last year, but it's like they just haven't. I don't know. It's easy to say strip it down, but this is a multi-layered, huge rebuild they're going to have to go through, and it's going to start with just unloading and getting those picks back, because they put themselves in the worst position possible, which was not only did they spend a first rounder on a quarterback that they missed on, at least in the sense of that they're not going to commit to anymore, most likely. They traded their most valuable offensive weapon in DJ Moore, who's excellent now,
Yeah.
just signed an extension with Chicago and gave up multiple first-round picks that could have potentially turned into Caleb Williams or, whoever it might have been in their situation. So it's like they just have to get this draft capital back, really just like strip this thing down. And it's the hardest job for a GM, because I don't know how, as a GM of the organization, you could have faith in the organization that they're going to do the right things anyways.
Yeah. It's bad when NFL fan as big as you can't even like conceive the idea of how to fix the Panthers. Like,
it's the worst spot to be in sports. Like when you have like incompetent ownership that is never going to look out for the fans. Like, and I feel like that's probably how the Carolina fans feel about Tepper. Like I think about the Red Sox with John Henry, where it's like like he does not care about winning. He cares about profiting, and that is an investment to him. And that is the way he feels about.
Seems like a trending thing with a lot of baseball owners. I mean, of course, everything in the world kind of seems that way, but especially baseball owners lately.
Oh, and then I didn't even mention John Fisher, who's probably the worst owner in all of sports with the A's. Like,
and then you have the White Sox, and then
there's so many. There's a lot in baseball, and I feel
like you hear about the White Sox only sold like 17 tickets the other week.
That's going to be Carolina. They're going to set some all-time, like, just because it's the NFL, people will go to games, and because people love the NFL, and it happens once a week, 17 times a year. There's going to be some Carolina games that look worse than that one that was at the rainy one. I think it was against the Falcons maybe last year, where it was scattered like 150 people in the stands. Yeah. There's going to be some really, really bad Carolina stuff over this year, the following years. I was thinking about it today, like the poor people who have to sell tickets for that organization. Like, it just trickles down. And that's so the point of it, like bad ownership, it ruins everything. And I think that the number one thing you should want as a sports fan is an owner that's a fan of the team. And so, like, even if they don't make the right decision 100% of the time and you don't agree with them, like I'm in that situation with Kraft. I think he's maybe the best owner in NFL history. He's certainly up there all time. Yeah. He's a no doubter Hall of Famer. He has a resume unlike any other. He saved football in the New England area. Over the last few years, I've certainly questioned things that he's done, but I do know that at the end of the day, he's trying to win. Like, the attempt is there, that I know I don't have to have, there's no lack of faith that he's going to be, just trying to cash checks or pass this thing on to another. Like, he wants to win. He's a fan of the team. He talks about it constantly. And I don't agree, firing Belichick, bad move on my end, but to him, he's trying to win. So you can't fault that. And I think I'm that way with the Celtics too. Like, Whit Grusbeck is a fan of the team and wants them to win. And like that's why really Boston in general has been so successful, minus the Red Sox. But
it's the city of champions for a reason.
Right. It's good ownership is everything. And like, that's the Bears. Look no further than the McCaskey family. Like they what they care about is selling 85 Bears merch and, talking about the legacy of this like great Chicago team, not winning. They would like to, and they've certainly had strides to do that in the near, future. But yeah, it really, like, it is the worst place to be in sports. And if you're a Carolina fan, I jump ship. Like, it's bad. No one would blame any Carolina fan for picking a new team. This is like those stories that you hear from people that are 70, 80 years old now that are like, I couldn't deal with it when I was, 15, 17 years old, and I just bailed and I went to a new team. That's what my team since. If you're Carolina, sell your stock and just go pick a different team. No one's blaming you. Yeah,
no, I'm not a big fan of changing teams too often, but like, if you are a Panthers fan, this is probably the time to do it. And I think like you said, I think most people would understand, because it's a top down thing. It's not a bottom up thing. And those things you can't change. You can't convince I'm assuming this guy's like 75 at least, 70 at least.
Tepper's
maybe younger.
67. I honestly thought he was younger than that.
Okay, I knew he's old. Oh, not old. 67 is not too old, but he's old.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere for at least 10 years, I would say. Yeah. So when you have that shit show going on, it's like, what do you do? But yeah, no. That's interesting. Yeah, I hope the best for the Panthers. But when it comes to Bryce, to go back to that, I think hope he gets somewhere to land. Realistically, I don't think it's gonna be another starting job, but I think if he can just get somewhere where it's like he needs to fill in a gap, maybe. I mean, maybe it is a starting situation where he goes over to either Oakland or he goes to Miami or something like that. But realistically,
Miami would be awesome. I think that would like.
I think Miami would be the best situation for him right now.
It just like that's a stable offense. He's not going to have to be. He's not going to have to do everything, which is what Carolina is basically asking him to do. He can play the two offense where he knows where the ball's going before the ball's snapped. Like that would be a perfect situation.
Really,
I hope that Carolina doesn't hold him hostage and like
that would be the worst situation for him.
I know
it could be another year or two, and then he could just be done with his rookie contract and gone.
Yeah, well, like even this year, like I hope that a team is able to call them that is in a quarterback situation. Maybe it is Miami. That and I doubt anyone right now is looking to give up big assets for the future. They're going to play this season out and kind of evaluate over the offseason. But I know that the head coach of the Panthers today said, we still view him as our franchise quarterback, whatever that means. It's like, just don't play this game with this guy free. You don't plug him back in week 8 looking for the spark, pull him in week 14 for Andy Dalton again. Like, just don't do that whole like charade. Like, go one way or the other and let the guy go as soon as the offseason's over. Because once you decommit to a guy, it's over. That's like, I remember with the Mac Jones thing, it's like when we played that game against the Bears, it was Monday Night Football, and it was like it was either the game or the game after he had just come back from an injury, like a high ankle sprain. And when they pulled him after like an immediate pick to we were playing the Bears. And they put Zappy in, and I was like, and the fans are chanting for Zappy, and I'm like, well, that's it. Like once you pull the guy, you can't then go commit back to him. And they tried to do that during the offseason and be like, because that was the 22 season, tried to do it going in 23, and then what happens 5-6 games in? It's like he gets pulled again. It's like once you do that once, you've opened the floodgates. Like there's no covering the holes anymore.
Yeah, no. Then it's just like, okay, who's gonna hold us over until he drafts someone next, essentially.
Yeah, and like the Panthers are going to be the worst team in the league, probably. Like they're going to win.
I'll be surprised if they do
3-4 games. They'll win a game. It's so hard to lose every game. But I mean, they're going to be the first overall pick, and they'll draft Shadur or Quinn Ewers and restart the whole process again with the same thing. Maybe they'll fire a coordinator again. It's all going to be the same thing. Again, worst place to be.
Yeah, I don't even know. But yeah, to get off of that subject, when it comes to the NFC, we'll stick it to that subject at least. NFC, what do you think is going to be happening in the next coming weeks, months, season?
In the NFC?
Yeah, NFC.
I think the NFC is really interesting this year. I know people look at like the quarterbacks in the AFC and they say like,
I mean, it's hard not to.
They look and but I think the NFC is just so deep. Like every division feels like it has 3 teams that are aspiring to go to the playoffs. Or at this point, like,
yeah, I mean, like you look at the NFC North, any one of those teams can make a run, essentially.
Yeah, all of them are looking to make a run. Even the NFC South, which everyone thought was going to be a disaster, and Atlanta was going to cakewalk through. Well, 2 of those teams are 2-0. Atlanta's 1-1. And then the other's Carolina. But it's like I think the really interesting division is the West. All 4 of those teams think they're good enough to go to the playoffs.
Yeah,
Seattle
different because Arizona's back to being good. Kyler was good back in like 2020 and a little bit of 2021, but last year and 2022 they just sucked. And I think a lot of people forgot how good the Cardinals are. Pretty good when they have Kyler like actually moving and everything. So I think it's interesting.
They have a ridiculous offense. It's a deep offense too. And I think Jonathan Gannon's a great coach. One of those guys last year that just completely overachieved for what I think the expectations were. Tyler had a great opportunity this year. There was no outside noise. No one was talking about him. There wasn't any conversation, but this whole year is a prove it year for him because he's got to do something to show them that he's improving and that he is the franchise quarterback. So he has a chip on his shoulder, but he doesn't have that outside noise of what was happening 2 years ago when everyone was saying that he doesn't care about the game. He's playing too much Call of Duty, whatever it was. And I love the Cardinals this year. I think their win total was think I got it at 6.5, and I took the over on that. So I like them to be that last spot in the playoffs, but every team could be. You get the Rams, who are 0-2, who I thought were going to be a top.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be Super Bowl contenders.
I thought they were either going to be in contention for the division, and they got unlucky because they got smoked by the Cardinals last week. But they lose a game to Detroit. Now they fall to 0-2. Everyone knows that when you're 0-2 in the NFL, it's extremely hard to make the playoffs after that, or the history doesn't show that it's easy to make the playoffs. And then everyone's hurt on that offense. You got Kupp out for a few weeks. They say they're not putting him on IR. Puka's already spent a week on IR. It's a tough situation for them for sure. So I don't know if they recover, but still the whole division is really good. And that's not even mentioning like the top dogs of Dallas and Philly.
Yeah. No, I mean, you look at them too. I mean, they're not like killing it either. I mean, I know Eagles had their, fallout against the Falcons, which I was really excited about as a Falcons fan. But like when it comes to the Eagles and Cowboys, I mean, like they do have the talent easily to be in the Super Bowl. Easily. Yeah. I mean, especially the Cowboys, in my opinion. I picked the Cowboys to win the NFC East at the beginning of the season. I just think their talent. I mean, it's hard to look past the Eagles' talent too. They're so talented as well, but it's just those two teams are arguably the most talented teams in the NFL. Period.
And I think what's interesting about both of them is both of those coaches are on the hot seat. Like it feels like if they don't win a playoff game, both of those either one or both are gone.
I think so. I mean, rightfully too.
100% Sirianni. I know that Jerry Jones has kind of stood behind Mike McCarthy and said that that's his guy. And
and Jerry Jones has the tendencies too.
Yeah, he keeps guys around. But I think that Sirianni, the seat's so hot. And what's crazy is like that's what's pretty wild about the way that Atlanta game finished is that like all the play call worked. Like that was the right call to throw to Saquon. But like the risk reward there is there's going to be some moments. I was thinking about this today. There's going to be some moments where Sirianni is making way more either conservative decisions or he's playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Yeah. Where it's like the move to win that game was the play they ran and it worked. Saquon just happened to drop it. But to not lose the game, it would have been just another run, kick the field goal, give them the ball with 40 seconds instead of icing it on the play indefinitely. And I think that like he's going to realize like, Saquon dropped that ball, but at the end of the season, that loss is only reflecting him. It's not going to be on Saquon. They're not going to get rid of Saquon before him. He's the first head to get chopped. So it's like he's going to start I don't know. I feel like that's going to get like incepted into his brain where that becomes a problem for Philly if they don't turn it around. But I think Jalen Hurts is incredible. I know people are kind of all over the place with him. I think Dak's incredible as well. And those are two amazing teams that are both probably thinking deep playoff run along with everyone else in the NFC. So I'm really interested in the NFC this year. I think it's more exciting than the AFC as far as because there's just every team is so deep. You look at the AFC and it's like we know Buffalo's good. We know Kansas City's good. We're hoping that Cincinnati turns it around, but then the rest and then Houston too, but the rest of the field is like kind of up in the air. No one feels that much better than each other.
Yeah. For the AFC, now we were talking about it. What are some surprises you've seen so far, and has anything changed your predictions for the rest of the year AFC wise?
I'm not as surprised about it, but I feel like Buffalo got off to a hotter start. Like I kind of liked what Buffalo was. Everyone, because of who they were cutting and all of the restructuring of the roster that they did, people got really down on them. But it's like all of those guys were veterans that either were hurt or weren't playing anyways. So they didn't really, they lost Diggs, which you could make the argument is a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Right. You could say it's a good thing. Like
I'm a Diggs hater.
Yeah. I was never a huge
I think he's a very talented guy, but I think he's his personality is a bit cancerous around the wrong team. I think he could find a right team, but I don't know.
So it's like that, and then sorry, I lost my train of thought. Buffalo is surprising. Just the way they started so hot. They killed Miami in a way that I didn't anticipate them doing. And then another surprise, I just pulled it up here to refresh myself.
The Chargers.
Yes, that was the next thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think the Chargers are good. I believe in Jim Harbaugh a ton. I don't think they're legit, but he's getting a lot out of that defense that I didn't think was possible for the way it was constructed.
Yeah, it's weird too because like the Chargers, the past 5 years, it feels like have always had like a really talented defense, but they could just never put it together. And whenever and they lost a few guys like over the past couple of years to that defense they had 3 or 4 years ago that just seemed very well put together. But now he's just making it work. I don't know how he is, but to your point, like I don't think they're the team, but he's milking them out really well.
He's awesome. And I think that anyone who's not a believer in him hasn't really seen kind of what he's done. Like he did it in the NFL. Yeah. He obviously was in a Super Bowl. He went to Michigan and said he's going to beat Ohio State. It took him a little bit, then he did it, and then he did it again, and then he did it again, and then he won a national championship. It's like this guy has a process. He's going to do like
he will deliver.
It'll take time, and maybe they're a little ahead of schedule here, but it's like this offense was completely depleted from what it was a year, 2 years ago. At least the supporting cast outside of Herbert, and Herbert's still hurt.
I mean, Austin Eckler was a top 3 back in the league. Keenan Allen Mike Williams combo was arguably the best combo in the league, and now they are doing everything without that. Kind of like a Moneyball situation where it's just like
they just took the Ravens backfield, Gus Johnson and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I mean, like they're getting J.K. Dobbins out there on a dime, essentially. Same thing with like Ladd McConkey, rookie receiver, and I don't even think that was the first round. So I mean, it's really impressive. That's all I can say.
Yeah, this is kind of why like I have immense respect for what Kansas City has done, not denigrating or taking away from that at all. But like when people talk about them in the same breath as the New England Patriots dynasty, this is kind of why I think that they're not exactly there yet, because they did the 5-year span where it was all of them. And it's the same core, basically. I mean, of course, 5 years is a long time in the NFL, but
it's still the same.
They had Mahomes is the quarterback, Tyreek for a lot of those games, at least the 2019 Super Bowl, Kelsey, Chris Jones. So it's like I think there's 2 phases to what makes you go from like a dynasty to like the full on, what the Patriots were. And it's when you absorb those. So like what happens when Kelsey and
Travis and Chris leave?
The whole thing, how you replace that talent. And then second, when everyone's mission to start the season is how do we beat you, I think that completely changes the way that you have to then play. Like, I don't think we've gotten to that point fully. Of course, they're the ones that are going to be hunted because they're the back-to-back champs. But this Harbaugh hire to me is like, come do what you did at Michigan to do at Ohio, like dethrone Ohio State the same way that it is. And it's like, we saw this with the AFC East 100 times. They would bring in the Dolphins, the Jets, the Bills would bring in a top quarterback, a new head coach, a new GM, whoever. And it was always the hottest offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator or a great retread head coach. And it was just like year after year, and they never got it. And that's why New England's so impressive, because the entire AFC East was making decisions on the roster. Like when the Bills drafted Edmonds, it was like, this is the guy that we need to stop Gronk. They're spending top 50 picks on guys because they're like, the only way that we get into this postseason is stopping this team. So we have so at that level of championship caliber is what I think that Kansas City has to overcome to then be in that like all-time team talk.
Yeah. And then it also leads to the question of like, this is a little bit more of a baseball thing, which I don't think you can do as much in the NFL, but it depends like on what you want to show Kansas City in a week 10 or 11. It's like, if you're the like Cincinnati Bengals, which I mean, they've already played the Chiefs, but if they were to play them week 11, 12, are you showing them what you're wanting to play, or are you trying to set them up for the AFC Championship game? And that leads to a lot of like, like what you're just saying, like how do you just dethrone this person? You know, like for an average game, you're just trying to beat whoever you can during regular season. But when you start asking those questions of like, how do you save those playbooks, like or those plays, that's when you know you are a team to beat. Like you are the hunted, and they've been the hunted, but like they are slowly becoming everyone's enemy.
It's gonna be it's gonna be a different level of like, and I think that the Harbaugh thing was the first step in that, where it's like they're not hiring just a coach to like win them games. They're hiring one. They're taking a big swing at one to be able to dethrone someone. And I think that's what the next level of being a great dynasty is then overcoming that. And also an interesting thing too, which is, you know, kind of adjacently related, but like I don't think Mahomes will have Andy Reid his whole career. It'll be really interesting to see kind of how that, like, it's not going to be a Belichick Brady thing where those two just kind of like in almost wrote off.
Andy's a bit too old, together, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also, I mean, I know this doesn't really have a lot to do with it, but he's just not in shape. You know,
well, he's had multiple health concerns over the last few years that have like put the coaching career in question. And Mahomes, honestly, has given him life in the sense of, I think he would have retired 2 or 3 years ago if he just had Alex Smith or a quarterback of that level to play with, because then it would have been a lot easier. Now it's like my legacy is, it went from one of those coaches who just never got it done to this is one of the all-time guys, and he's probably thinking about the win record somewhere deep in his head.
No, 100%. Yeah, that is an ironic analogy though with Harbaugh. I probably thought about it, but I just never put, like, I'm relearning it now. The fact that like literally it's almost the same thing of Ohio State sitting right there and you bringing in the guy to the blue and yellow team to try to knock him off. You know, it's ironic. It's funny, but no, I'm just gonna keep that in mind for sure. So what's your playoff picture right now?
I feel like it hasn't changed too much. So actually, let me just pull up my playoff picture from the beginning of the year. I don't even know how to find that. I think there's, I got it. Okay. So maybe I do. This is the worst podcasting ever.
That's all right, man. This is chill. Once I start getting these Instagram clips, though, that's when it's gonna be like, okay,
oh yeah,
now I gotta take it seriously. Get some graphics going.
Maybe I did do a picture. I don't know. I do think that in the AFC, I think you're going to see a lot of the same names. So I still think Buffalo's going to win the division, even at this point now. I think Kansas City is going to win the West. That's your top 2 seeds. I do think Baltimore is going to figure it out. I don't want to say they're going to win. Weirdly enough, I do not believe in Pittsburgh at all. I bet the under on their win total. I think they're still like they're going to end this season with.
I think they'll go.
I thought they were going to win 4 games. They might win 6 games now because I didn't anticipate them going 2-0. I don't believe in Pittsburgh. They're going to go into that hell that is the revolving door of quarterback, and they'll eventually swap Justin out for Russ, and then they'll go back to Justin. Yeah. Cleveland, don't believe in the quarterback, won't work. So I think Cincinnati and Baltimore are going to be the ones, which is ironic because they're 0-2. And I know 0-2 teams typically don't make the playoffs, but I think that's going to happen in the AFC North. It'll be one of those two. I just don't know about Cincinnati being better than Baltimore, so I'd say like maybe Baltimore the 3 seed. I love Houston. I think Houston's very good. And that's the top 4 seeds with Kansas City or Baltimore being the other wild card. I think after that it'll be probably the Jets and then maybe the Chargers. That's the 7 seed. They're the last one in the AFC. It's between them, Miami, if they can figure out something at quarterback, and then probably I wouldn't count Jacksonville out. I think Jacksonville's the best 0-2 team in the AFC outside of the Baltimore. Cincinnati
that's crazy. I was about to cut you off because that would have been a crazy claim.
I do think the Jacksonville's good, and I
think their defense is very underrated.
And I just think their offense hasn't gotten going yet. So it's like I'm not a believer in Tennessee. I think Tennessee would be one of the worst teams.
No, I don't.
I just don't think they have the
talent. I didn't buy that from the beginning. I don't.
Yeah, I'm not a Will Levis guy.
I'm not. Yeah, me either. Like it. No.
Yeah, I kind of ran through the NFC picture, but I think Dallas will end up being the 1 seed.
Yeah.
I think that's just the the division that'll cannibalize itself the least. I still like Atlanta to win the division, even with Tampa and New Orleans. I'm gonna still hitch my wagon to them. And then, you know, Philly kind of being one of those wild cards. I think San Francisco is gonna win the West. I thought the Rams would be their best competition to do it, and I really thought the Rams could. They're gonna get so beat up again with they have no one on offense now. They're gonna have to just run the ball and throw to Tutu Atwell. Like it's
which is
over there.
Raising the question. I mean, we could probably save this for another time, but it's starting to raise the question about Matt Stafford. You know, what does he want? You know, because if I'm 38, 37, 36, I think it's 36 years old, going out there and just throwing to a 4th-string receiver to like maybe get 7 wins. Like, what am I doing? Like,
his situation is interesting because he's always going to be win now, and it's like they were. I honestly, if you would put a bet on Stafford to win MVP and Rams to be in the Super Bowl or be in the NFC Championship, wouldn't have blamed you for a second. It's just like they get some bad injury luck. But in that sense, the best thing to have is probably the best coach in the NFL right now, which I think is Sean McVay.
Yeah, 100%.
Him or Andy Reid.
Yeah, they're up there. Yeah, or he's up there. Yeah. So you have those all in your picture. Who's your Super Bowl favorites?
I really do think the only team that can get Kansas City in the AFC. I think Cincinnati can do it. I think Houston can. I just think Cincinnati's a matchup problem for them. And like every time they play, it goes the same way. It didn't even have Higgins didn't play on Sunday. It was
too close of a game.
They always
going to happen.
They always play them so well, and Cincinnati's defense is always so good against Patrick Mahomes. And I really liked Cincinnati just straight up. I liked them the spread, but I thought Cincinnati was going to win that game. Should have, and I think they can do it. You just can't say Buffalo can yet. I feel like Houston. So really, what I'm saying there is that I think Kansas City is probably going to come out of the AFC again. I just think the AFC's down. And then the NFC, I got no idea. I want to say that not like as good as everyone is, everyone's got that thing. Like,
yeah.
I just after week 1, and I do it every year. I'm like, this is it. Dallas has figured it out. Dallas is going to do it. Like, they took care of business against a team that they could have cut it close with. They were underdogs in, and then what happens? Like the next week, New Orleans. So Detroit, I feel like feels like the safest bet as far as talent goes for sure. But I think it's a total toss up in there. If I was throwing out a prediction, the team that's been there with the Niners, maybe, but you just don't see repeats like that. So after
those two teams are just so favorable. I think all the sports books, I think, I have them like top 2. So I mean,
it's just the ones that you want that you're comfortable picking.
Yeah, because I mean, like numbers, like as much as you want to be fun and feisty and say it's going to be the Ravens and the Falcons, it's just, are we really? If you had to put money on it, are you really going to say that? You know, if you had to really put money on these situations, it's going to be the Chiefs and either the Lions or 49ers, and it's probably going to be the 49ers over the Lions.
I really liked the Ravens too to start the season, and 0-2 is not a curse, but like, I don't know.
The only thing that stresses me out about the Ravens is that the defense just got overhauled in the offseason. And we did make a couple of good pickups, but it's just like, why would he get rid of Patrick Queen? I don't know. But I don't even know where Patrick Queen is now. I forgot. But
Steelers.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, no, that's an interesting take. We'll have to do more podcasts following up, especially when it comes to the postseason. See if those come true. Hopefully, I hope not with the Chiefs.
I think the most fun thing is like, and it's week 2, which gives you a little. I think week 2 is the perfect point to start forming opinions because pre-week 1, no one knows anything. After week 1, everyone thinks they know everything, and then that all gets unwritten in week 2. So it's like now it's like we got a semblance of kind of who people are and what things look like. But it is always fun to look back at the end of the season, same way the draft is, and it's like who knows, Pittsburgh could end up being great, and here I am saying they're going to have 5 wins. So
Yeah, for anything, Justin Fields is the guy, and we have no idea what we're talking about.
That would be the most surprising possible outcome of this NFL season is if Justin Fields solidified himself as the guy. Of all the quarterbacks that are starting right now, I'd be most surprised about him.
Yeah, the guy in Pittsburgh too, which I mean, Pittsburgh's just been a quarterback room mess probably since like, I don't know, 2019. It feels like. I mean, ever since Ben started getting consistently hurt 24/7, it just has not clicked. So that's interesting. When it comes to you personally, what are you looking at for the red zone, Patriots red zone?
I'm having a lot of fun with it, honestly, this year. Like I know that because the last time we talked a few weeks ago, we were talking about, you get into like the groove of it, and I feel like I got a groove with this season so far right now. I'm really like, I feel like I've had some time to dedicate to it that I haven't or I've wanted to in the past, or I've been able to like make that time for it. And yeah, it's going well. I don't know if there's anything specifically that I have that I'm like looking forward to that's on the books, but
yeah, that makes sense. Are you still doing a podcast or anything with that? Or I mean, did you meet anybody at the Bengals game too? Because I know you went to that game.
did I meet anyone at the Bengals game? Like as far as
I don't know, just like media. Like, are you still in contact with like a lot of
what was kind of weird is I felt like I knew, there were some pages that were there. I feel like that game like didn't have the turnout that road games usually do for the Pats. And it was like, it used to be like so expensive to go to Gillette. People would just fly to another city. But like, that was like a pretty expensive ticket to get. Like they're just, I don't know. It wasn't the same like Pats turnout there that I kind of anticipated, but I guess that's what happens when you go into the season being like the second worst team as far as win total goes.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I am going to the game in Nashville in November, and that'll be great. So I do think that I could potentially see 2 wins in the season that might not have very many wins because Tennessee is certainly not a team that's going to be favored by much if they are against us.
Yeah, no, not at all. What do you normally do when you see go to these games, like with other media pages?
I feel like it's funny, like with.
Do you mainly just stick as being a fan, or you try to, I don't know, stick out a little bit with like a couple other people?
I mean, I always like basically the basis of my page is like I'm a fan first, like that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And I do my day to day, my little thing, like doing the like posting or whatever, and like get the post out. But it's like, just being a fan. I think that it's kind of funny, like because I've been to, I think training camp is really when you see like everyone, which it's like all these pages or whatever, and like you follow them, you see them, and then it's like it feels like this massive, like, I don't know, like get together or like whatever, like conference, that's the word I'm looking for, of like fan pages and Twitter, like, and listen, like it's interesting, to use a nicer word, group of people across the board. Like there's some, like, I feel like there's like the tiers and levels of it, which I'm not super into, and there's some people that are super notable. I would not consider myself in that range at all, but I feel like I've got my like small crew of pages that I interact and collab with, and then everyone else is kind of like
just kind of
observing from afar.
No, that's definitely how I kind of pictured it would be, because there are always going to be those like handful of top dogs.
There's clicks for sure within, like, and I'm everywhere, whether it's Pat's pages, what sports page, whoever, there's like group, like you see, it literally feels like, like high school cafeteria online, where you're like, oh, like that's like the 7 pages that are always interacting with each other, and then those guys don't like these 4 pages. It is very funny, like how it works out like that.
There's levels to it. It's funny hearing it from the drama of it, I guess you can say that way, when you're not used to it. If you're like a fan, if you're a normal fan following those pages, it's probably interesting to hear, because I feel like most of these fans, like, not most, some, maybe most, I don't know, aren't really thinking about that. They're not really thinking about like the personality, like who's actually running it, and then like what the drama is between these, because it is a drama thing. It's a fan page. It's not a media account. It's not run by like a team. It's not run by Someone that's really being paid. It's like it's somebody that's doing it as a passion, and if they can get paid, they get paid. But like it's a passion project essentially, with perks, of course. But yeah, I don't know. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, the Cincinnati game week 1 was awesome. That was as good as a week 1 vibes get. It's crazy how like that sets up the fan base for just like immediate optimism when it's like we haven't won a week 1 game since 2020, and
that's a long time. I
mean, it is kind of a long time. Like it's not like the longest, but like 4 years going like 0-1, 0-1, like is, or yeah, 21, 22, 23. We went 0-1 all of those years. So it was like, it was nice to like get one, but it is just funny kind of how that like sets you up for optimism and going forward. Like, and then of course that can all come crashing down week 2, and then we'll play tomorrow, Thursday night, and that could start 1 and 2 could make people start calling for Drake May. But it was a good week 1 as far as like some content I did not. I literally almost, too, funny thing like fan page wise, I almost left my hotel in Cincinnati without making a win. I do like some pages do a final score graphic. Everyone knows what the final score is. Like, if you don't need to go to me to find that.
Yeah.
I don't need to. So I do like a win graphic. I'm not going to do a lose graphic. Like, I don't need, again, it's like, it's about hyping up the win and getting people to want to repost something and have something to put on their story to say, hey, we won. That's my idea behind it. Anyways, I almost left my hotel without making a win graphic. I did all my like preseason prep where I was like, okay, I got the game day.
Not even thinking about.
Didn't even think about the win graphic. So I took like an old one, kind of reinvented it a little bit, and just made it like where I could do it on my phone if we won. And I'm like,
when did that dawn on you? What?
30 minutes before we left for the stadium.
Oh my God.
So I was like, all right. I was like, I'll just pull my favorite one that I've ever done, kind of change some things on it, make it editable for my phone, not my computer. Because I was like, I was telling people the whole weekend, I was like, we're gonna win this game. I was like, we went to the team store day before the game, and my friend who I went with, is a huge Bengals fan, was grabbing his stuff, and they were selling like the game day pins, and I was like, I'm buying one of these because it'll be Gerard Mayo's first NFL win.
Yeah.
And I was like, this will be like a cool little thing. Like if he ends up being a cool coach, or like this is a good season, like this will be like a cool little thing to have, whatever. So I was like buying it, and I was like saying this out loud, and people were like, oh, you're just ready for this game to be like, you guys are gonna get smacked. And I was like, we're gonna win this thing. So I was happy about that, but it never dawned on me to make the win graphic. So just a funny like fan page thing. I was like, I had to do that because I've done this before with the season. I did it the last 3 years. I forgot to. So it's like started 0-1. So really, if you want to blame anyone for the upset, it's me.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it is shocking in general, just losing that many week 1s in a row, just for an average team. That just by law of numbers, that's already weird. But like as a Patriots, even I know they are bad right now, but like that's still a little bit weird, in my opinion, for a traditionally good team. Especially when you go up against the Bengals, who, I mean, I know they're not regular season juggernauts, but they're still the Bengals.
That's a team that was thinking Super Bowl going into the year.
Exactly. 100%. But yeah, now it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But hopefully, I can get you back on before you go to your Titans game, or maybe right after. We'll discuss it a little bit more. But I don't know. I'm also interested to see how this season, or this intro of my podcast journey a little bit goes, because like if I end up doing this, 30 podcasts in, and if we just really find a click here, I don't know, I might have to switch it up and just go full sports mode on this, which I don't want to, because I do think it's harder to grow a sports podcast than a more personal one. But I don't know, it's easy to click right now. So I'm only 3 podcasts in though, so I can't really be saying that.
You got plenty of time to figure it out.
Yeah, but we'll see. But yeah, thank you for joining, brother. We'll see how it goes next time, and I hope I'll get you on here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, anytime.
All right. See ya.